G'day, lovely. I'm Louisa, and I'm going to talk today about lead generation and the three main problems I see that stop women property developers finding the deal that they want to sign up for. Okay, so the first problem is a lack of consistent leads. Okay, so not having a constant flow of leads coming across your desk that you need to analyze so that you can get the volume that you need to be able to find the one. Okay, instead of a constant flow, you've got crickets. Yeah, so you might have tried a few different methods to bring in those leads, maybe calls to agents. You might have even entertained doing some letters, but nothing's come back. So illustrated with the crickets is that you've essentially got the silence with only the odd one or two coming through. Okay. The second problem is that it feels hard. Yeah. So when you think about getting a deal, it's not something you feel is easy and natural for you. Okay. It's I guess something that you meet with resistance when you think about it because it goes into the hard basket. Okay. What you've tried, isn't feeling easy. It doesn't feel like it's returning you the results that you want. And let's face it, it's either feast or famine. Okay, so let's say a deal comes onto your desk, and then you're spending the next 2 weeks maybe looking at that deal, going through, analysing it in depth, reaching out to your consultants, etc., trying to come up with a number. And then maybe you either lose the deal, you put in an offer, or you were too slow, or it just didn't turn out to be very profitable. And then in the meantime of those 2 weeks, nothing's happened because you've been so focused on that one deal that you've got no other leads, coming forward. Okay, because you weren't doing any prospecting during that time because that had all your focus. So it's either a feast or famine. Okay. So what do you want instead? Let's talk about that. You don't want those things because they feel negative. They don't feel good. Okay, they're not conducive for getting you a deal that you want to sign up for. Okay, so what do we want? We want flowing leads instead of the rusty dripping tap. We want a tap that's open. We don't want to be flooded. We just want a nice steady flow of properties to analyze, to work out whether or not they are going to be the one that you want. In property development, you need to have a certain volume to be able to find the one that is developable and profitable and you can get, okay? Because there's those three things that must stack up and align for you, all right? You might find one that looks good, but it's not developable. You might find another one that's good, but it's not profitable. You might find you've put in an offer in one and your offer isn't accepted. So we need to get the volume to get all those three things to line up for you, okay? And let's face it, we want it to feel easy. We don't want it to feel hard because as soon as it feels hard, you're going to resist doing what you need to do, to get it done. If it feels easy, it's going to draw you in more. It's going to feel more motivating. It's going to mean it's going to get your time and attention. Okay, so yes, we want it to feel easy. And we want to find the one. We want to find the deal that you want to sign up for and that you can secure. Okay, so throughout all of this, this is the ultimate goal, to actually sign up for a deal that you're going to take forward. So you're going to have the offer accepted and you're going to move it forward into profit for you to start on your wealth journey. Okay, so that's the ultimate that we're after. Okay, so what we've done is we've talked about the problems that you're experiencing right now. We've talked about what you want instead, and now I'm going to outline some of the mistakes that I see people making when they're out looking for a deal. Okay, so the first one is random action, and I see this an awful lot. Okay, so let's say this week you decide to hit it hard. You're going to ring up a number of agents, you're going to send out a ton of letters if that's where you're at. Often, you're starting with ringing agents and you don't get the response. Perhaps when you're talking to the agents, all you get is told about properties that you've already seen online. You get nothing new out of them. so much for this, developing relationships kind of thing. Didn't seem to feel like you connected with them, and it didn't really go anywhere. And the same for the letters. As I say, you don't get any owners rigging, so you're not feeling very excited about the response, about the outcome. So for the next 2 weeks, maybe even a month, you don't really do very much. You find other things to do. You let life get in the way. So it's very understandable. Sometimes when you're starting out, you need, what would you say? You need to have something to encourage you. And if you're not getting the responses back, then you're not feeling very encouraged. You're feeling quite the opposite. So that's when you go off and shuffle around and do some other things. Okay, so that's where you hit a brick wall, really, because you're doing such random action and you're really getting nowhere. Okay, so that's the illustration. You're getting nowhere fast. Okay, instead of hitting the brick wall, though, we need to be knowing about how to go around it. Okay, but the problem is that we've got no system or structure in place. Okay, so that's when we tie back to the random action, where you haven't really got anything mapped out that this week I'm doing this, the next week I'm doing that, the week after I'm doing this. So because you haven't got the structure or any system in place to support you, it's like it's left to your own free will to decide, oh, well, this week I'm going to do this. Okay, you haven't predetermined the approach that you're going to take for deal finding. Okay, and when you want to achieve anything in life, you think about some of the bigger things that you've achieved. It hasn't happened by chance. It hasn't happened by random action. It's been strategic. It's been intentional. Yeah, would you agree? So having no system in place to guide you, it seems crazy. Okay, like it really does, because what would a deal mean for you? Well, quite a lot of money in your pocket if you can find one. So given the reward is extremely high, the approach that I see people take is, it doesn't match the reward that you're going to get. So having a system means that you're not having the random action that we've already displayed that you've likely got. Okay, so we've talked about what the problems are that you're currently experiencing and what you would like instead. So I've also stepped through what are some of the common mistakes I see people taking when they're looking for a deal. So what's the opportunity? How are you meant to change that? We want to think about what's the transition from where you are right now to where you want to be, which is signing up a deal, right? Okay, so the first step is to be an area expert. Yeah. It sounds very obvious, okay, but it's a step that many people miss. All right, so it's also really common for people to not have locked down their suburbs. Okay, so they're still got that fear of missing out and they're looking all over the place. If you're focused on Brisbane, for example, maybe you've got a number of different suburbs. You're just doing a catch-all sort of look because you feel that there's more deals in other locations. And it's very counterintuitive. Okay, so you can't be looking everywhere and be an expert everywhere. You need to nail it down to those 3 suburbs. Okay. The thing that brings is a certain knowledge and confidence about those suburbs when it comes time to actually do the analysis. All right, because I guess just to back up a little tiny bit is that by getting to this stage, we're assuming that you're confident about analysing deals, as in to identify if they're developable or if they're profitable, okay? Because if there's any doubt, about your confidence in doing those assessments, then you need to be backing up and looking at those processes before you start jumping in to looking for a deal, okay? Because you can bring in any number of deals that you want to, but if you're not confident about doing that analysis, then it's completely pointless. I remember many deals that I looked at in the early days when I got into development, where they were cracking deals, and I saw later what other people did with them, but I really just didn't have the confidence to pull the trigger. I didn't have confidence in myself or, the numbers I was putting together. So I would have been so much better winding back the clock and actually looking at my processes and really getting super confident and capable in there before I started looking for the deals. I did it the long way around by actually, just eventually getting there and getting confident. So I guess we're assuming that you are already at that stage where, you should be looking for a deal. Okay, so what do you need to be doing in there? So finalising your suburbs is what we said. None of this can be done. None of the rest of this triangle can be completed if that's not done. If you haven't narrowed down and picked your suburbs, then the rest of this is pointless, okay? Because you can't do it. You can't be a generalist in this regard. Not from my perspective. I've tried to do the generalist approach and I found it didn't work very well. So being targeted gives you the best results. And you want results, right? You don't want to, accept the standard that you've got right now, which is crickets, which is not very much. Yep. So as part of that, we need to be developing your address database. Okay. My philosophy is very much about having a couple of different methods which are going to attract both on-market and off-market deals, okay? And letters are a huge part of that. My success rate with letters has been, it's been really good. I brought in the majority of my projects from letters, so I put a lot behind them. And not to say that I don't work with agents as well, because that's not true. I do also develop relationships with agents, but letters are very complementary to my strategic process, okay? And once you've actually, got the address list together, I mean, it means that you've actually run it through your 10-minute process, okay? Your 10-minute decider, which is something that you should already have, okay? So with my clients, the 10-minute decider is something I do very early on in the piece so that they're completely comfortable with things like overlays that are going to affect the site, some of the external elements that are going to affect the site, so that they can just run a property through that very quickly, very confidently, because they understand what those things actually mean, as opposed to, I know I need to avoid flooding. They've actually gone and understood what, what levels of flooding, what other overlays they can deal with or not deal with, and they end up with a address database, as in of properties that they actually want to send letters through, properties that they actually want to do a project on, okay, to a certain level. Obviously, at this point, you're not going down into the services and stuff like that. You're doing a very surface 10-minute review, okay? The next aspect is actually strategically picking the agents that you want to build relationships with, okay? Let me give you an example, is that I've got one agent that I've built a relationship with that drove past another property that he didn't have as the listing yet, saw a for sale sign, saw it wasn't online yet, and rang me up to let me know about it, because he knows that's exactly what I'm looking for. He knows exactly what I'm looking for. Imagine that they're actually willing to support you in your journey and what you're trying to achieve by letting you know about listings that they don't even have. It's pretty special. And that's really, sure, it's not necessarily a relationship you're going to have with an agent, but that's really like what we're striving for here, okay? So being very strategic about the agents, because on the flip side, I've entertained talking to agents maybe over 1 month or a 2-month cycle, and each time I talk to them, it's like I'm brand new. They don't remember who I am, and they seem resistant to even build a relationship, okay? And if you've got that, then it's pointless. You need to, be getting rid of that person and picking a better one, okay? So actually getting strategic about who you're going to build the relationships with. Okay, so that's the first stage that needs to be covered off. All right. The next stage is, well, I keep talking about all these relationships, but how do you do that? What sets you apart? How are you going to become someone that attracts other people to you, whether that's vendors or whether that's agents? Okay. Because let me tell you, there's a big difference between people that do it well and people that don't do it very well. Okay, so it's about getting that advantage by being strategic in your actions, intentional with your actions. All right, so the first step is who are you dealing with? Now, this is more in terms of vendors. Okay, so I step my clients through a process where they get to have fairly intimate insight into the vendors that will be likely selling the properties that they want, okay? Because the more you can understand them, the better they are going to relate to you, okay? So if you can relate to them, they're going to want to talk to you. You think about any marketing that's out there, and if it doesn't resonate with you, you don't want to take action, right? So the more compelling, the more resonating you can write your letters, the better the response is going to be. All right, so that's the first part, is who are you actually dealing with. The other thing is about the features and benefits, as I call it, okay? So what is it that's going to motivate them? Okay, so how can you put together, package up your offering, your framework to motivate them to work with you? Okay, so it's really having some great insight into what it is that you're offering that is actually going to relate to them. All right, so features and benefits, that's something, again, that is really vital. You can't write, for example, letters if you haven't covered these steps. I think it's really hard to develop relationships with people if you just don't know where they're coming from. All right, and it's funny, when my clients have actually gone through these two stages, that they realize that the person that they thought would be likely that they'd be buying from, that they'd have properties to sell, was actually quite different. Their situation was quite different, perhaps, to what they had originally thought. Okay, so it can be, it can be very enlightening, a game changer, I think. And I've worked with, my strategy has been, up until recently, it's still a strategy, but not my complete focus, was working with owners to joint venture with them to do subdivisions. So really getting inside their psyche and knowing how to build those relationships. When that was my sole focus, it became, I really understood the importance of that and really gained some great insight into how to go about that as well. So, okay. So, and then a strategy, which I've kind of covered, where you're actually very strategic about the relationships. Okay, so you don't just pick up the phone and just, oh, hi, Mr. Agent, how you going? I'm looking for a splitter block, or I'm looking for, a block I can subdivide. Have you got anything? Oh, no. Okay, no worries, I'll give you a call next week. Click. You actually have a strategy behind the conversation. You know what you're going to say to try and develop that relationship. And it isn't going to be something that you make one phone call, two phone calls, maybe have a month at it. It's going to be very different to that, okay? The approach, you're in this for the long game. You're not in it for the short term, okay? So none of this, what you're doing, with the amount of groundwork and foundation you need to be putting in place to actually get any level of success, is not overnight. It's not a short-term vision. It has to be a long-term vision, a long-term game. Okay, so when you're developing these relationships, you're laying down a lot of groundwork to actually get the result that you actually want. Okay. I'm not necessarily saying it takes, like 6-12 months to get anywhere. Not at all. But, it's not like you just pick up the phone a few times and expect amazing things. Okay. It does take some nurturing. All right. So we've covered off being an area expert. We've covered off relationships. And the last part of this is actually having a system to support you. Okay. Because we've already talked about the random actions, the brick walls, the crickets, etc. If we don't have a system, like saying, is if you think about the success that you've had with something before, it's not happened by accident. You haven't just approached it with, one-time wonder kind of approach. You haven't been random. Normally, to achieve results, we need to be strategic. It keeps us on track. It keeps us guided. It keeps us motivated. One of my clients said after, we designed her a weekly schedule, if you will, so some KPIs of things that she should be doing every week. Once she actually had that in place, I should say what she felt like beforehand, that it was just, she was bogged down, just felt overloaded. She's in a full-time job, so it just felt like she was just really had a lot on her shoulders, a lot on her plate. And she was very hit and miss with how she actually, did things. A bit like what I talked about earlier. Once we actually put together her system, and as part of that, we put together her weekly schedule and KPIs, she said it's just so easy now. It feels so easy now. Okay, and remembering that's one of the things that we wanted to feel, because she knows exactly what to do every week. She's taken the guessing out of it. It's taken the thought process out of it. It's just like, right, well, I need to send out these many letters a week. I need to ring these many agents, and I need to, I'm on this sort of cycle. These are the things that I need to be doing. There's lots of other elements behind what a system might look like for you to get you an outcome. And I'm not going to go into all of those things today. But fundamentally, what do we need to do? We need to we need to have templates. So we've written some letters, for example. Okay, so that needs to be a strategy about, letter number 1 is going to talk about this. Letter number 2 is going to do this. What are the call to actions? How are we going to get them to pick up the phone? It's a system that's going to focus on getting you results. Yeah, it's not just like, hi, you're thinking of selling, I'd like to buy, give me a call. It's not as basic as that. Okay, so we need to be really stepping it up to think about what's going to get them calling. How are you going to get the results that you want? Okay, so I've already touched on the weekly schedule. Terrible writing there, and as part of that, we've got the KPIs that you're going to be measuring. So, we have KPIs for success. So what do you need to be doing every week, broken down into all the different activities to be able to generate a result? Okay, so one of my clients just recently got 6 off-market leads through the door, okay, in the various forms of prospecting that she's got. Imagine that, 6 off-market leads. So that's on top of anything that might be on realestate.com. A couple of those might have been ahead of the game. So perhaps you got notice of the properties coming on before they were already on. Okay, so which is really what you want. You need to be ahead of the pack, because often, the deals that are really sexy are snapped up before you've even had a look in. Okay, so that's one of the things. Imagine 6 off-market leads in a month. Yeah, fantastic. That's something that you would have to be striving for. And it's been all of this in terms of the deal finding side of things that's really helped support her to get those sorts of results. Okay. So what else we got? Just looking at my notes here quickly. What makes up a system is that then maybe we've got some scripts. Basically, I hear people say, well, oh my God, what do I say to owners? On top of what do I put in a letter, it's like the fear factor of what do I say when they ring, okay? Because gets very real when you're putting the letters in the mailbox. Okay. Again, another client saying, oh my God, it feels real now. The letters are in the mailbox. So, you know, she is, you know, this particular client has been geared up to feel completely confident for that moment. Okay, so it's having, let's say, a script about what happens on the first phone call, what happens on the second phone call, when do you initiate a meeting face to face, what are some of the activities that need to go on behind the scene, you know, because the reality is that you don't have much time to think about this stuff. Okay, a vendor rings and you're going to need to know what the next step is, because you need to be telling them that on the phone. Okay, so, and it can be very confronting if you haven't pre-prepared. Okay, so that's the thing, is having thought through some of this stuff before you actually put yourself in the cold face. You can do it the other way, and you know, as opposed to doing nothing, then that can be just as good. But this is what a system needs to look like. So you can either build your system on the run, slowly but surely, or you can work with someone like myself that can help you build this sort of stuff really quickly, because, you know, I know what you need to be able to support you and get that success. Okay, so essentially, you know, this is what a system looks like. The last thing is actually a comms schedule, as I put it. A little bit different from the weekly schedule, because, you know, like the weekly schedule might be, you know, all the different activities that you need to be up to, because there's quite a bit, as I say, that goes on than just talking with agents and just sending letters. But a comm schedule is then, well, okay, with the people, the relationships that you're trying to build, how often are you talking to them? In what form are you communicating with them? You know, is it on letters? Is it, you know, is it on phone calls? Are we doing flyers? Are we doing this? Like, what's the cycle that you're actually trying to manage? Again, taking out the guesswork so that you don't have to be thinking, oh my God, where am I up to? You know, what am I doing this week? Oh, this week I'll try this. You know, it's very strategic. Well, this week I know I'm doing this and I'm going to, you know, do all these things. I don't have to think about it. I just need to do it and it's done. Okay, so as I say, very strategic. All right, so just to recap, because as I say, we covered here the three things, you know, 3 areas for you to work on to really, you know, to get those targeted results. We've got the area expert, which is very much about setting up your suburbs that you want to prospect and bedding those in, talking about bedding in the agents as well, setting up an understanding about the relationships that you want to build so that it's putting you in an advantage over others, because you've got a lot more strategy behind how you're going to approach those relationships. And then you've got a system there to support you in your activities. You've identified what you're going to do, how you're going to prospect. I guess that was probably the only thing I didn't actually have on there, is the funnel. You know, what is the funnel? Ironically, the thing that people worry about the most, whereas it is a lot to do with the other things. What do I write in my letter? I hear that all the time. It's like, well, the letter's such a small part what goes in it. It's more about being consistent. It's more about all the other stuff that goes to support that. So what's the funnel that's going to support you? You know, what templates are going to get you the results? What's the weekly schedule of activities? What are you going to say when the phone rings? How often and what do you need to be doing to communicate with these people? Okay, and then it's doing. Okay, so I guess that's the next step, isn't it? Really, it's the doing part. But you've got these things here to really support you in doing all of that stuff. Yeah, because these are one-off tasks. Yeah, these are one-off. Once you've actually got them in place, you've gone through the exercise, you don't need to keep doing them again, unless, for example, you change suburbs, which is really not a great thing. So, you know, this is the constant doing. All right, that's where you need some accountability to yourself, either through your own means, which, you know, can be a struggle at times. I totally understand. Or, as I say, utilising someone like myself as a mentor to support you and keep you accountable. So supporting you to put these things together, and then supporting you to take the action that you need to take. All right. So essentially, once you've actually employed these things, you've transitioned. You've gone from where you're at now, which is then where you want to be. Because if you do all these things, if you consistently take that action and you've got that prep, you've got that support in your own system to keep moving, it's something that you do time and time again. You don't have to stop, start. You don't have to have those crickets. Once you actually get one deal, you can keep doing these activities to continue to get more deals and then scale if that's what you want to do. Okay, so the system will support you moving forward to the success that you want. It's not a one-time wonder. Okay. Okay, so I hope that you've taken some things away, some good takeaways from the video today. We've stepped through a number of areas. It's gone a little bit longer than I would like, but you can see that there's a volume of information here. A number of activities that go against getting that deal that you want. Okay, so I'll leave that with you for now. As I mentioned before, I do have a 6-month mentoring program. So if you would like any help with this stuff, whether that's looking for a deal with that, whether that's helping getting your further foundation in terms of analysing deals to get your confidence up, exactly what I do is help women become confident property developers. Okay, so if that's something you'd like to find out more about, then pop up your hand, book a call with me, PM me, reach out in some form, and we'll talk further about, how mentoring would be able to help you accelerate your journey, get that confidence that you need to be able to keep pushing forward. All right, I'll leave it with you. Love to you.